Well, good morning, everybody. We're going to get this second committee meeting going of the Higher Education Committee of the House, a dual enrollment and tuition equalization grant ad hoc committee. Appreciate everybody being here this morning. We will do introductions in a minute, but I know we've got some other people who are hanging around from the first committee meeting, and Senator Hickman, we'd love for you to join us as well for this meeting as well. But we're going to go ahead and turn it over to President Lynn Riley to give us an overview and a presentation on the Georgia Match Program. So, President Riley, thank you very much for being here this morning, and the floor is all yours.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the ad hoc committees that are here with us this morning in beautiful Statesboro. I'm delighted to be able to take a few minutes to give you some greater insight into the Georgia Match Program that Governor Kemp introduced to the nation back earlier this month. So I'll jump right in. Let's first talk about what a traditional college admission process is comprised of. A student has to do their own research, they have to consider what they might want to do, and then they've got to spend a lot of time looking around to try to find an institution that will meet their higher education goals. The student often pays an application fee to each college that they want to apply for, and they will receive not only acceptance letters, but they might receive some rejection letters as well. And the student has to be self-motivated to take all of these steps on their own. The direct admission program that is rolling out under Governor Kemp's leadership in Georgia is to give these students a roadmap when they're entering their 12th grade year. This letter that they are receiving this month identifies all of the USG and TCSG colleges that the student is academically qualified to attend based on their HOPE GPA. And Student Finance Commission calculates that amount and then includes those institutions on their personalized letter. The letter that the students receive particularly is targeted towards students that have never contemplated college before, but they're receiving a personalized letter that tells them where the welcome mat is waiting and ready for them. So we sent out the letters on October 10th. They are still hitting mailboxes for the students. The Postal Service has had some glitches, but they are slowly rolling out, and the student will receive that. The good news is that we also have ability for them to receive a copy of that letter from their high school counselors, and our websites have all the information that's personalized for them as well, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. The reason why Governor Kemp envisioned a way to connect our talent of tomorrow with the opportunities they have for learning in the state of Georgia was the economic prosperity that has been talked about earlier today and that we all are very aware of, that we've got over 1,700 economic development projects and $65 billion of investment and 165,000 jobs coming to the state of Georgia in the next few years. And right now, students are entering a job market where there's more jobs than seekers, so we desperately need all of the talent that we can train to fill up all these job opportunities in the state. And I want you can see the slide that we've got up right at the moment, and this is really what drove it home for the governor. Right now, about 50% of the high school graduates, and this is reflective of the class of 2021, about 50% know and are making plans to go to college in their, the fall of their first year of college. But 50% are taking a different approach. 10% of that roughly are going out of state and not taking advantage of the great schools we have here, and 40% aren't. And imagine if we could capture most of that 40% and have them trained at TCSG or USG and be able to go right into our workforce in Georgia, that we could be sure that we have that pipeline that we so desperately need. So why college in Georgia? As I've said, that we have such a great need for this talent and this, to fill up our workforce pipeline. But we have phenomenal institutions for them to attend. The University System of Georgia has a wide array of opportunities all the way across the state, so many campuses. They have a huge enrollment in fall of 2022, over 334,000 students. Our system has the lowest tuition in all of the seventh lowest tuition in the country and the third lowest in all of our SREB states. And as we know, that students that go to college generally earn more over their lifetime than they would if they don't. Our technical college system, as you've heard talked about earlier today, is second to none as well. And this Georgia Match letter includes all of the TCSG colleges because admission is guaranteed for every Georgia high school graduate at a TCS institution. And we have great higher education financial aid available for all of these students as well. The HOPE grant and the HOPE scholarship program is currently covering 100% of tuition, as we all know, thanks to the work that was done by the General Assembly that's here today in conjunction with the governor. And we also have additional funding through our HOPE Career Grant program that provides additional assistance to students that are going into these high-demand career fields that we so desperately need. And of course, Georgia Student Finance Commission has the ability to assist all of these students, particularly those that had never envisioned going to college, with finding all the financial aid assistance they might need and helping guide them to make good choices with our outreach team and our website functionality that they will be able to interact with to make sure that they can make their best decisions and then choose to learn here in the state of Georgia. And as you already know, that we have so many different programs available to our students, not just the HOPE Scholarship and the HOPE Grant. We provided awards to over 248,000 students last fiscal year. And as you know, the HOPE program over 30 years has invested over $14 billion in our students to learn here and then be able to thrive here in Georgia. So this is a visual of the letter that is going out to students, and this is a sample for a student that has a HOPE GPA calculated at 3.4. And at a 3.4 GPA, the student is eligible for all of the participating institutions in the Georgia Match program. This is their roadmap, if you will, for them to know where the welcome mat would be out and how they would connect with those institutions to be able to proceed into the full admissions process. We do have 3 institutions that have chosen not to participate in the Georgia Match program because they use a different admissions process. So the University of Georgia and Georgia Tech and Georgia College and State University are not participating this year, but all of the other institutions that you see on this sample letter are making sure that they are ready to receive and help these students thrive. Just a little bit of a visual, we sent out 110,000 letters on October 10th, and this is what on the left is the pallet, one pallet of 60,000 letters, and all of the envelopes that were put together to hit the mailboxes. Some areas of the state have had fairly quick delivery, but there are some areas that the letters are still making their way to student mailboxes. As you might have heard a bit earlier in the earlier ad hoc committee meeting that our college president at Georgia Southern mentioned that he's already had a number of students or a number of prospective students that have sought out to attend here at Georgia Southern. November is Apply to College Month in the state of Georgia, and all of the participating institutions are waiving their application fees for the month of November. So while we were encouraging students to open their envelope and start doing their research on where they might like to attend, we've been encouraging them to take their time and not proceed with an application until November to ensure that those fees would be waived. We have been heavily marketing through a number of different venues to make sure that students know that they didn't have to wait for their letter. If they have go to our georgiafutures.org homepage, you can see we've got high awareness of the Georgia Match program that as soon as you open up the website, and a student can log into their Georgia Futures account, and all of the information that is listed on the letter that they would receive is already pre-populated on their individual dashboard. So a student that doesn't have to wait, many students, the moment that the governor announced this initiative, immediately went to the website and started searching out the schools that would welcome them. This slide that you're seeing now is a representation of their unique dashboard where a student would see a list that they could scroll through of all the institutions on their letter, and they can do their comparison shopping right on this dashboard. They can look at cost of attendance of each of the institutions that are listed. They can look at the geographic distance from their home where these institutions are, and they can use other functionality on our website to look at the programs offered at each of the institutions. And if they see institutions that they would like more info about before they make some decisions on pursuing a potential admission, they can click on the Request Information button, for all of the institutions listed, and the institutions will immediately send them more information. We have integrated our technology at Student Finance with the post-secondary institutions. We provide them an overnight feed of all of the students that have come to our website to find out more information. We move that overnight to the institutions, and within 24 hours, they are sending information out to the students to give them that content to be able to make some good decisions on what to do next. When a student has decided where they might like to potentially attend, they can click the Claim Your Spot button on up to 3 institutions and immediately start the process at those 3 institutions. We intentionally limited to 3 institutions that they could automatically claim their spot, just to ensure that they weren't shopping too broadly, and if they try to ask for more than 3 institutions, we will prompt them that we'd like to talk to them personally to make sure that they don't spread their interests or focus too far and could maybe benefit from some personal guidance. So high schools immediately began partnering with all of the higher ed institutions to make sure that they're communicating with their students. They are making sure that they know all about what was coming right on October 5th when the governor announced the program. The counselors have also received a copy of every student's letter so that the counselors have the availability to sit down and share the information should, for whatever reason, the student not receive a letter in the mail or not find their way to our website to find this information themselves. Counselors are going to use the information that we have provided to them to be able to help the students navigate more promptly and place more focus where their skill sets, their interests, their passions might lie, and direct them towards an area of where their match for their higher education goals could be found. Our post-secondary efforts, as I mentioned, the TCSG and USD institutions are ready and receiving these feeds of student interest on a daily basis, and they are immediately reaching out to make sure that a student has everything they need to make a very good decision on where they might want to study after they graduate from high school. Just some visuals for you, some communications at the colleges, some samples of what the students will see once they ask for more information. Again, in an effort for the student to raise the awareness of what the unique institution offers for programs and experience. The social media toolkit that has been put together as a collaborative of all of our education partners here in the state is to help a student be guided through the steps of the program to make those good decisions, take advantage of Apply to College months where they save money, and also know that they have so many resources that can help them as they are contemplating where they might wish to attend. We did a whole lot of social media development so that we can get the students where they spend most of their time on their digital devices. And we are actually initiating a peer influencer prize contest that will give out some technology in December, some laptops and some iPhones and other things like that. We want our students to be challenging each other to open their Georgia Match envelope, look at their potential future of where they can study and stay in Georgia and thrive, and help each other, encourage each other to make sure they take those steps for higher institution education. We partnered with TCSG and USCG and developed a great deal of digital marketing. Many of you may have seen this when you open up some of your browsers that is helping the students know that, and we will be continuing to do this all throughout this academic year for 12th graders, so that if they do not go through the process in November to start an admissions process, they have opportunities all throughout the year to eventually claim their spot. And many of the institutions will also waive their application fees in March for those that may not have made a decision or taken an action until then to consider where they might want to study next year. How do we track success? The education institutions came together specifically to say, okay, we know what we want to do. We want to grow the workforce pipeline here in the state of Georgia. We want to encourage students that might go out of state to consider staying here in the state of Georgia, and all of the non-traditional students that may not have ever realized that there was a place for them in the state, we want them to take the initiative as well. So we are tracking on a daily basis. Every day we are getting feeds from our systems on the number of students that are going to our website, the number of students that are requesting information, the number of students that are already claiming their spot. And so we will be able to make data-driven decisions on how we most strategically engage with these students this year and for years to come, so that we can continue to ensure that they have all the information they need to make really good decisions. And I will tell you that hot off the press this morning, since October 5th, when the governor introduced Georgia Match, we've had 115,000 views of our Georgia Futures website. We have had over 20,000 QR code clicks, and the QR codes are on these letters for the students to go to their dashboard. 19,000 are directly from the letters, and 1,000 are from some of the promotional materials that we had provided during our presentations on the program. As of this morning, we have had 7,000 requests for information from all of the different institutions, and 5,800 spots have already been claimed by students. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we can see from which school districts these students are actually taking activity on our website, and we can see some school districts that so far we haven't seen any activity, so we know that potentially the Postal Service has not gotten those letters out into their mailboxes. So we remain optimistic that before November 1st, when Apply to College Month kicks in, that the students will all either received a hard copy letter, or their schools will have helped them get a copy in their hands, or they'll have made it to our website to be able to see what's on their personalized dashboard. I'm sorry, let me just wrap up with, after we get through this year and we look at all of the applications that are actually encountered through this Georgia Match website, we'll be looking at enrollment, how many students will actually enroll in our USG and TCSG institutions next fall. And then we'll be watching those students and partnering with our technical college and university system to make sure that the resources that these students will need will be available to them to ensure that they persist and that they thrive. And even after they get through their first year, that they continue on. And then we'll be looking at graduation rates and how that will move based on these interventions and awareness that we're raising for our students. And then, of course, we will be also following those students into the workforce to ensure that the dollars that are invested through the higher education funding formulas that the other ad hoc committee spoke about, the funds that student finance provides in all of our financial aid, and all of the other resources that we are devoting for this workforce pipeline growth are achieving the goals that we have set for them. So the metrics are all in place. We're following how much the program costs for us to administer, and we hope in subsequent conversations with the committee that we'll be able to continue to bring you updated details. The team at Student Finance Commission, as well as the teams at the Technical College, at the university system, and at the Department of Education, are always available to talk with you or your constituents, either on a one-on-one basis or in group focuses to make sure that folks are aware of this amazing opportunity. You may have heard Governor Kemp say when he rolled this out on October 5th that he would like Georgia Match to be as highly recognized as a program and a value to the growing our education and growing our workforce as the Hope Scholarship has been for the last 30 years. And so I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee for allowing me to bring all this information to you, and know that we will be available at any time, real-time basis, to provide you with updated statistics on what we already see is the success of this amazing program.
Thank you, President Riley, and it really is an amazing program, and it's really amazing the effects that institutions are already seeing, per what Dr. Marrero talked about with us earlier.
Exactly.
So I think this is going to be great, and I think it'd be great it's up to Chairman Martin, but I think during session to come back to us with a recap of where the program's at, numbers, statistics, all that. It'd be great to see come session. So, but thank you. But I would like to open it up if there's any questions for President Riley from the committee. Representative Dickey.
Thank you, President Riley. I appreciate you coming here, and great program. It looks like it's been very well thought through, and I want to go back to this pie chart you did earlier, where you tracked some graduate outcomes after high school, which is one of my concerns that we don't do that. So I'm glad to see somehow we've, it says it comes from GOSA, so I don't know. Where on this pie chart do you think this program will have the effect, from the working group or from the unknown, or what are we targeting? Who are we targeting with this program?
Thank you for the question, Chairman Dickey. We really are targeting everything on the left side of the pie chart. Not only do we want folks that choose to go out of state to be reconsidering the value of an education that they can receive here in the state of Georgia, we want them to really be thinking about the fact that, we have the Hope Scholarship and all these other great financial aid programs that other states might not. So there's that portion that it'd be great if they all decide to come back and learn in Georgia and then potentially earn in Georgia when they complete their education. The working group, that's the target group that we think had never realized that there was a place for them in this state. And so we're trying to raise the awareness of particularly the TCSG, but also USG institutions. They can walk right in the door. They're already ready, and they would be welcome immediately. And then the unknown, I think we hope to find through the interaction on Georgia Future's website that we'll know more about that unknown group, that we'll be able to digitally to observe their progress after high school, and then be able to bring to that information to the General Assembly so that you can make key decisions on matching that talent with the workforce needs.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Well, it does work after all. Does Georgia Match integrate with Georgia Degrees Pay?
Georgia Degrees Pay is a website run by the University System of Georgia, and they cover the institutions that under the Board of Regents. Georgia Match information we will gather information from the university system. We are also, the Governor's Office of Student Achievement is partnering in this program as well, and we have signed data sharing agreements with all of them so that we will capture all of the information that will provide you with outcomes of the program.
I was thinking that I love both of these, and I thought, gosh, why didn't we have this 40 years ago? Of course, it would have been good to have a computer 40 years ago, but.
Yes, the Georgia Degrees Pay is really helpful for students to make good decisions on what USG might provide for them for their economic prosperity in the future. Governor's Office of Student Achievement also has information on their website about what careers might provide as far as a paycheck, and Student Finance is looking to provide that information as well as we evaluate the fields and the jobs the students go into.
Any other questions for President Riley? Chairman Martin?
Just pardon me, as a follow-up to that, and this group led by Chairman Fleming talked a little bit
Athens, I believe, at the meeting about getting the word out. That we best kept secret, if you will, our overall system, public-private and in the university system as well as TCSG, which this is doing to high school students. So then begs the question, and I go back to this, I think there's a lot of talent at home now. I think there's a lot of people at home that, again, COVID may have changed their way of thinking, so they're at home. I just wonder if something similar to this, can't be done in conjunction with our chambers of commerce. I mean, this is not necessarily to say you're accepted per se, but I just think whether we like it or not, we live in a clickable world. I mean, the more, I can't remember somebody was getting me something the other day, and I had to go and fill out something they wanted me to do, and they had mailed it to me, so they knew who I was. But yet, with the click a link, I'm going to have to type in several things on the form. I just wonder if there's not a way to drive this out through our chambers of commerce to their membership with a QR code, because if they're sending it to a business owner, they know who that is. So if they click that QR code, it's embedded in, and it would have the proprietor. So love the opportunity. I just think anything we could do to further this, out in our area, to again driving people to the opportunity we have with the high demand career fields. So I know the ink hasn't dried on this one yet, so I don't want to take you down another thing, but duplication of that effort into a non-traditional environment.
Mr. Chairman, we welcome the opportunity to work on that. I think, again, because we have the technology now to be able to be that central portal for application, feeds out to our institutions, I could see that would be another great expansion of this to allow Georgia Futures to be that interface for any non-traditional citizen that wants to learn more and develop a skill set.
The transition in the family, if you're at home and you have a senior that's graduating, perhaps the mom or dad in that home is like, okay, things are changing for me too,
Let me request information
right.
and claim my spot.
Exactly.
Well, I love the imagination, and I know that we'd be delighted to partner and determine a way that we could expand the workforce in that regard.
Well, I would hope that we could do that and do it along with the chambers. I mean, the Georgia Chamber, I guess, would be the single point of contact so that they could help us. I think multiple chambers are members of the Georgia Chamber, but I know every time we're with them, they're talking about workforce. And it's a bit like I just feel like we have a lot of stranded capital. I mean, that's what they refer to it. When Airbnb came up with, bedrooms, all these bedrooms that weren't being used and people weren't, using them for income. I feel like we have a lot of stranded human capital in this country that just needs a class or a certificate, to be. They are valuable to our communities, but to be valuable in terms that they can monetize it. And still do what they want to do at home with their families in this world. So I hope we can help with that.
Chairman Martin, I think, and Dale Washman here could tell me, I think Macon Bibb Chamber has done something almost identical to what you're talking about. Very engaged in trying to match up workers with job things and skills and all. And this would be just what you're saying, I think this would be a great overlay to complement some things what they're doing, and I'm sure maybe some other chambers have designed a program very similar to what Macon Bibb is implementing too down there. So, yeah.
Chairman Knight.
Thank you. Thank you for the work. I know USG Technical College System, the governor's office, has worked very hard on this, and I think a bigger takeaway for us as legislators is we're faced with appropriations, we're faced with, quite frankly, demographic changes. I know most of us who've been here a while have heard the statistics. our students coming out of high school are getting smaller and smaller. The population is diving. And so we face a problem of not more students coming into the system, but we're actually dealing with a smaller population of students, period. And I think this is a great effort to make sure that we're going after the students that are there, especially, again, you're looking about half of these students that we want to make sure that they understand either going to college, technical college is an option, or staying in state. And I think this is a great tool to help us make sure that we retain as many students in our Georgia higher education systems as possible from within our homegrown, our state and our students within our state. So thank you for doing that, and it makes our job a little easier down the road.
Well, thank you, Chairman Knight, and we're very proud to be part of an initiative that is the largest in the nation, that is very visionary on our ability to grow our workforce pipeline, and I'm excited about the opportunity to continue to work with the members of the General Assembly to find more ways to make sure that a smaller population finds more opportunity here in the state of Georgia.
Representative Glaze.
Yes, I had a question in reference to graduates, people who have already graduated. How do they then access opportunities within the match program, if at all? And then have we thought about the number of students who probably did not go to school in the last 3 years due to the pandemic? Is there any thoughts behind going and seeking those folks out to help them come into the program, and then how do they do it?
Well, thank you very much for that question and thought. One of the things that we are doing as we're going out and talking about this program is looking for feedback, like what I've just heard today, of ways that we can expand that workforce by expanding this program. Right now, this program is looking at 12th graders, and we're planning for next year's 12th graders. But certainly to be thinking about those that we could capture that are either in the system or recently have left high school is certainly something, because we have information that we could use to help them understand their opportunities. Certainly something that we'd want to look at. So thank you for that great thought.
Thank you. I think the program is just going to be very, very helpful to parents and students. Likewise, I hope that we don't forget the few students, and they're not few, but that will choose private schools. If there's anything this committee can do to come behind that and make sure we help those kids who look for a particular fit that may go over into private, so we can make sure that we don't lose any of them and give them some kind of incentive to stay in state, even though they might choose a private. I just want to throw that out there, because those kids are part of this whole ecosystem, and we need them.
And thank you, Representative. The outreach team at Student Finance, that is something that they focus on, that if a student isn't choosing the public system, that we help them look at the benefits of staying in the state of Georgia, and that's why we have a good piece of that right side of the pie that are our private in-states, and we're grateful for that partnership.
Thank you.
Chairman Martin, you have a question?
President O'Reilly, I'm going to be a bit generic here because I don't want to put any institute. These are not Georgia. These are out-of-state institutions. I'm trying not to put any of that on the, putting me on the spot. But you being from the area I am from, there's out-of-state institutions that made severe, not severe. That sounds like a bad word. Substantial outreach into our county. To make courses available, if you will, much like our dual enrollment, I believe. Mm-hmm. Are you tracking with what I am referring to, without being more specific? Again, I'm not trying.
Please.
Okay, so that's fine. I just want to make sure that because the name of the institution is not important. What I'm trying to do, knowing what you know about Georgia Futures, about Georgia Degrees Paid, how could that ever be advantageous to a Georgia student to take the courses from an out-of-state institution? How could that ever be? I'm curious to find out how
that is advantageous. I mean, they've partnered with the school system to do it when we offer dual enrollment. And that's why I'm leaving the institution out of it. I'm not trying to pick on that. I'm trying to determine how it's better to do what is a bit equivalent to me toward dual enrollment with an out-of-state institution rather than through what we offer.
And Mr. Chairman, I would challenge why someone would choose that when we're so affordable. Our institutions have such diverse offerings for our students. Why wouldn't you take advantage of either the free opportunities we provide through our financial aid programs like dual enrollment and avail yourself of that? Why would you put yourself into a debt situation when we know how problematic that is for a student? When we have so many great opportunities that could be paid for 100% by the programs we have at Student Finance.
Okay. Well, I mean, and there could be obviously loyalty to a particular institution. There could be a particular line of coursework.
course.
You know you're going that. I understand. I was trying to understand just as a generic student, aren't we providing a pretty wide breadth of opportunity through a dual enrollment? It seems like I've just always wondered why that was a thing. And you don't really.
I don't have a good answer for you at the
Fair enough.
moment, but it's certainly something that we could consider and maybe do better messaging to our students on that, again, use what we have here that we offer for you.
Or at least make sure you don't want to use that. I mean, right? I feel
Make a conscious decision why
Yes,
you
ma'am.
wouldn't.
Sure.
Any other questions for Representative Glaze?
The President Riley of looking at our TC, SG, and the USG areas where we're not using dual enrollment as much, and some of those areas are issues related to transportation needs for students. I know that there are other private institutions that utilize dual enrollment, and they use their staff in-house. So they use their teachers who are eligible to be like an adjunct professor because they have the graduate degree that's focused in that area where that particular dual enrollment course is required for them to teach it. Is there a possibility of looking into that? I know I've got in my area about 4 or 5 high schools, and the dual enrollment is low. And I keep hearing that it's due to transportation needs. I don't know how we solve it. I do have some ideas, but I certainly love for some continued information about how we can maybe partner with the school system and allow those teachers who have those degrees to teach that dual enrollment course connected with any of our local USG colleges that are at least close to the vicinity. Cutbirth, I'm thinking, which of our TCSGs are closest to that maybe we can continue to push dual enrollment because they don't have to leave the campus. They've got someone right there who is an adjunct professor, and that can teach that dual enrollment right on campus.
Well, thank you for that question and those suggestions. I know that there's a lot of collaboration between the Department of Education and our private high schools on integrating with our providers at the post-secondary level. And a lot of it is, the pandemic, of course, had a great impact on the decline. And I'm happy to report that decline is behind us. We are, based on some of the preliminary information we're hearing from our providers, we're moving back and may exceed pre-pandemic levels of utilization of dual enrollment in FY24. So I think that that's starting to solve itself by the end of the pandemic, but I think continued dialogue, particularly with the high school counselors, to encourage their students to take advantage of 30 free credit hours of college instruction while they're in high school.
Yeah, but I just wanted to relate that it's more of the students not being able to get to the campus to actually take the course. They have transportation needs. I was just wondering if there's a way to think about how to offer some support for transportation needs in those areas where we find that that's an issue for our students.
Well,
to
student
take
finance
advantage.
would certainly be welcome, and happy to be in that dialogue, but I think we need to talk to the post-secondary providers and determine how they could best meet those gaps.
Okay. Love to talk more. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
I love that the goal is to have this Georgia match as well known as HOPE, because over the last several meetings we've talked about, and Chairman Martin had said, best kept secret. So I love that the goal is that. Do you ever imagine a future with something like Georgia match and Georgia degrees pay for an old guy like me for TCSG to be able to go hunt and find options like that to bring that older potential workforce back into the workforce? I love this stuff. Is there ever a possibility of that, you think?
Representative, these websites are available for anyone of any age to do their research. Today, we wouldn't be able at Student Finance to assist in a process to apply because we rely on high school transcripts. But let's imagine big. Why wouldn't we be thinking about ways that we could embrace the non-traditional learner and welcome them to integrate with our portals to be able to find where their next niche is?
Any other questions for President Riley? Well, President Riley, thank you very much for coming down today and doing this presentation, and thank you throughout this whole committee process with all of our hearings we've had, you and your staff being available and providing us with information and answering questions, so thank you very much.
Thank you. It's our great pleasure to partner. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. All right, so we're going to move on. I just want to kind of recap of some of our former meetings that we've had over the past 3 meetings and kind of what we expect today to get out of the meeting. So over the past 3 meetings, we've heard from dual enrollment and TEG stakeholders. We've had a lot of good discussion amongst the committee. Have a lot of good questions have been posed about both programs, and we've gotten a lot of information back to the committee members through that meaningful discussion and thoughtful consideration on these 2 issues. So for today, I just wanted to open it up to the committee to have discussion amongst the members on potential recommendations or opportunities for change regarding dual enrollment and the tuition equalization grant program. We do, as we know, we have President Riley here and also Mark Peavy from TCSG on hand for any questions regarding it. Our last meeting, we focused on tuition equalization grants. I think that was a very thoughtful meeting as well. We heard testimony from some of the private colleges and universities, even from one student, about how important that program is to him and his educational career. So I just want to kind of open it up at this time for discussion amongst this committee on y'all's thoughts, y'all's ideas, and possible recommendations moving forward. I will say that on the tuition, on dual enrollment, there was a joint House and Senate committee, subcommittee this off session, and they just wrapped up in the past few weeks and issued the report. I think the report was emailed out to all the members. And okay, we do have the report if anybody wants it. And they have in their report some recommendations and improvements that they have laid out, which I thought were very thoughtful and probably some good suggestions to be looked at. But also moving forward on both of these programs, any recommendations or changes or modifications, I think we have to be mindful. We have to work with the appropriators. We have to work with the governor's office and OPB, because any changes we make, obviously, there is a financial aspect to it. So at this time, I'll open it up for discussion. Representative Lady.
What I wanted to ask is back to the opportunities to look at the needs of students who may choose to go private that are eligible and they take the TEG, but they're also eligible for Pell. And they're staying in state, they're going to one of our private institutions. We are up to $1,100 on the TEG grant. But when it comes to those students who are very low income and meet that full Pell metrics, there's still a lot of need left with them when they choose private. And a lot of them, so if, that may choose a Reinhardt, there are specific needs and a fit that comes with that. And I know we're past this, and this is an appropriation question too. We have not done a whole lot over the years with just keeping up with other states in that tuition equalization and grant. And I'm real excited that we added, we're up to $1,100. But I still think there's still room to do some more work in that area to help those students and their parents. And so I just want to keep that in the forefront.
Right, absolutely, and it is great that we're able to increase this past session, and hopefully, we can continue to look at that moving forward, but, that is an appropriations question,
Yes.
and we will continue to have those discussions. I know Chairman Martin had a question a minute ago, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer again, for discussion, the bifurcation, trifurcation, if you will, of the dual enrollment, the TEG and the HOPE. Part of the reason I wanted this committee to look at was we have every session that I've been involved with higher education, we have another private institution that comes in that wishes to, be part of, they want the TEG. That's what they say. We want the tuition equalization grant. But what that infers now currently in code is if you get that, you have everything. It's all together. Once you qualify for TEG, your students qualify for HOPE. You can also later teach dual enrollment. I would submit that that's dependent upon the institution coming in the future. And it's not to say that an institution couldn't come in and try to fit in those categories, but I would suggest that rather than doing one-off decisions every year, that the committee look at breaking that apart and saying, in order to get, if you're a new school coming in for TEG, or if you're students that are going to have TEG after a certain date, certainly we don't want to take things away from people that made a commitment based on that, but that you meet this criteria. To get TEG, it's you're you're these things, and if you fit into that, you get it, and if you don't, you don't come back, and every year there's one more thing. Well, what about us? What about us? And I think that would be easier. I would submit that would be easier to draw the criteria for each one of those. TEG, HOPE. You can teach dual enrollment. If we separated the three, as opposed to if an institution came in and wanted to do one of them, they by proxy get the other two when they may not fit into that, and it's harder to do. So that would be the one suggestion. The second suggestion, to look forward to is what is the TEG trying to do, assuming you're going to an institution where you have the HOPE award available to your students, which now, if you have TEG, you do have HOPE. In most cases, I would think you would have TEG, if you wouldn't have TEG available if you didn't have HOPE available, in most cases. But we have situations now where you can, well, I'm just going to say it. I think we are encouraging people by putting dollars out in TEG to make perhaps a less than stellar financial decision. There are places in our private college system where it's really good and they differentiate, but there are also places where with the TEG we're encouraging or helping somebody attend a school that may be 3 or 4 times as expensive as a traditional student going to a Georgia public college that's not getting that same support. Does that make sense? So I mean, I think that the TEG kind of goes with the sort of high demand career field, if you will. If you make a decision to spend $250,000 to go to a private school and get a degree in, I use this because I don't think it exists, Middle European ice sculpture, I'm not sure the Georgia taxpayer should provide you a tuition equalization and grant, because you've decided to go there. It's not a high demand field. Why should the taxpayer spend additional dollars for you to go something you chose to do when you could get that same thing someplace else? So I guess I'm probably going to start something when I make that decision. I don't know what those should be, but I suggest that should be part of the conversation, because I would further suggest if you're going to a private institution in a high demand career, nursing, you're trying to be a doctor, you're trying to be a dentist, that perhaps the TEG should be more, because you're going to do something and you're going to practice in Georgia. So I don't know, maybe the subcommittee did get into an in-depth discussion, about that, and maybe we can, if that comes back as something we should discuss, we can do that during session with the governor's office, with the full Senate, because we're not going to do it, obviously in a vacuum. But those are taxpayer funds, I believe. Commissioner Riley can tell me, but I believe TEG money is the general fund dollars, correct? So those are just taxpayer dollars. So when we get to the point of we're taking those taxpayer dollars, I think we want to apply them with as much scrutiny as we do with any expense we have, and paying those equally across coursework, degrees, without looking at what your building of yourself and then the benefit it would have to Georgians, I think deserves a conversation. And nothing may change, but I think it deserves a conversation.
No, absolutely. I agree with a lot of what you said, Chairman Martin, and definitely we've had a lot of discussion during these hearings about high demand career fields and tying a lot of this to that. I think that's very important moving forward to looking at that. But I do know some of these private colleges that are throughout the state, and a lot of us have them in our districts, and a lot of our constituents utilize these private colleges, and most of them are non-traditional students. And we heard from some of the colleges last meeting about some of their programs and how their programs work and how quickly they're able to put these students through and get them into the workforce and what their numbers look like. But I think Chairman Dempsey had something as well.
I also agree that it's really important that the outcomes are measurable. But one thing, Representative Glaze and I just came from the Independent Colleges Board, annual board meeting, and we're with many, if not most, of the presidents actually there. And you were too. It's a very interesting conversation. I do think that these private schools are so very important, and I will tell you, they have risen so much, I think, in what their standards are and what they teach. I do think that perhaps when I look back and when I was going to college, I know they were not at all the same, but they are providing really meaningful pathways to our workforce in so many fields. I'm not aware of many. They're probably there, but they're probably also in our university system and technical colleges, unique sort of degrees that exist there that are not putting someone into the workforce, actually, if they choose, particularly right now in the whole spectrum of healthcare, from nurses to doctors, our medical school. Mercer has just profoundly impressed me with what they're doing, and they take only Georgia students, only. That really, that's something to be said. Now, I will say also that MCG mostly takes only Georgia students. Their percentage is very small of who's not there. But I really do think they are partnering. Those private schools, I didn't even look at one when I was considering college. But today, I think I would, and I even think I would have encouraged my children to do so today. I have Berry and Shorter within my district. Y'all know I have championed for at least 4 years to help a nursing school that wants to be there, that if they had been where they are today, they would have fallen into meeting all the standards that existed to be certified. And so I think that's what we're challenged with. I do not want us, I want us to absolutely preserve the standards that exist today. The existing schools are doing such a good job, I think. I also don't want to stifle the opportunity for colleges, and there are very few that did not exist, but today meet every qualifier. I don't think we should reduce the standards if we decide that there's a pathway to do it without the hope or without doing dual enrollment. I'm really not aware of how many of our private schools are engaged in dual enrollment. So I think there's some data that we really do need to try to collect about what they're teaching, about if they desire to be a part of dual enrollment, if they would be okay without hope. I think that's a really interesting conversation, Chairman Martin, and something we should look at. I do want y'all to know, because I'll be back trying to help Chamberlain once again, and I would do this for any college that was challenged right now. You may not be aware, but the Biden administration has just pushed down a pretty hard mandate on nursing right now that our state cannot possibly meet in any way. And it is it will require hiring at least 3,650 full-time nurses for nursing homes alone. Now, we all know that our hospitals, many doctors' practices, many people are struggling to have the capacity for nursing. We cannot meet this, but it is done. We have to meet it unless we can talk them out of doing it. I'm working on that right now with our senators. It will add $187 million annual cost to the budgets of those nursing homes, as well as not having the nurses to do it. We can't do it. They can't do it. We're getting ready to see wings and total homes close and not have that care for that population. They're not all elderly. Some people with developmental disabilities end up in our nursing homes at even very young ages. So it is a really important thing, I think, as we go into this next session, that we continue to try to find ways to increase that pipeline quickly and bring nurses from all levels, from our technical, our USG colleges, and our private colleges up to speed, because we're about to be really underwater here and not taking care of people that need us to.
Thank you.
Because I want to make sure
Sure.
Shirley Dempsey didn't misunderstand me. My statement is not it's not a broad brush to get rid of TEG. It's not a broad brush to make it. I would just say relative to the institution you brought up, I would prefer not to, as we look at this of what you need to get to be a TEG, that we not look at an institution. But we instead say, if you meet these criteria, then you fit. Right now, we come back every year, and that's just the way the statute reads. We have to change it and say, or if you're, teaching this many people and you've been there this long, I would suggest that we fix that statute now, and we say, okay, this is the way it is going forward. So the institution you mentioned, if you come in and if we choose to include that in the criteria, then they would be eligible for TEG for their particular degree program. And the next school that came in wouldn't have to check. They would either know they either fit the criteria or they didn't fit the criteria. They wouldn't say, we entered Georgia when it was raining on Wednesday, therefore we get the TEG. The second thing I would say, and this is just a hard conversation to have, because when you change anything, there are winners and losers. I will acknowledge that. But I would submit there needs to be a discussion if one can get an early childhood education degree in the university system for $60,000 to $80,000 over 4 years, and then one chooses to get that at a private institution for over $200,000, I question, does the taxpayer, is it a good investment for the taxpayer to pay part of that $200,000? And if that institution is teaching something that's unique, it may be a conversation, and we may look back and go, yeah, it is a good investment. But if I look at it, if it was just an investment out there, if you could make, a person ready for a job for $60,000, and you could make somebody ready for that same job for $200,000, would you be more apt to invest in the person that was going to do it for 60 or 200? I suggest that you're actually putting the student in a public institution, as the representative said, that may have a higher need at a disadvantage, because you're actually giving the person that chose the higher ticket, the $200,000 education to be this, you're actually giving them more money because they picked a more expensive plan than you're giving the student who was maybe on a tighter budget that had the lesser expensive plan. So I just suggest that we let the money, the TEG, follow the degree pattern without regard to what institution, because remember, if it's Hope, if it's TEG, if it's dual enrollment, it's not about the schools, it's about the student. And putting that money where the student is, because really, if you're going to an institution that's charging you $200,000 for a 4-year degree, we're giving them $1,000 a year or thereabout in TEG. I mean, that's a very small percentage. I'm thinking the institution could just lower their tuition, 2%, and we could take that money and go. But I'm having the discussion, and I really should only be suggesting that we have a discussion. We bring more people in to directly, provide us information on that.
No, I get it. Yes, sir. I think Chairman Carpenter, did you have something?
I did, and I respectfully, I kind of disagree with you because, Chairman Martin, because I think about, if a kid decides to go to one school to take basket weaving versus going to a public school to take basket weaving, what's the difference? I get that, he'll be in debt $200,000 versus not being in debt. I understand those conversations, but I also think at some point it should, like we talk about all the time in K-12 education, if the kid feels like that's a better fit for them versus going to the public school to go to a private school, then the money should follow them. And
Just to be clear, I'm saying the Hope should.
Yeah.
It does. I'm just saying the TEG is extra.
Right.
So that I'm just talking about the extra.
Yeah, I understand. But but I think too, at the end of the day, the taxpayer is a net positive if they go to the private school versus the public school. So, I don't think it hurts the taxpayer, and if it's a program that the kids feel like better fits their, because not everything fits in the same box, and a school with 1,000 kids versus a school with 20,000 kids, is a better fit for some kids. I would argue, but obviously we'll have this conversation, I'm sure, next year. But that's just kind of my thoughts, and I don't have any private schools in my district. I'm a public school. I believe it. UGA grad, got a kid there, love it. But I do think that's not everybody's path. So thanks,
Chairman D.
Yeah, I wrote down several things here. I think we're just to be off the top, I think it's long overdue we increase this tuition equalization grant. I'm very much in favor of that. And Chairman Martin, I think it's a real slippery slope that we as government get involved at picking and choosing what degrees students take, whether it's public or private schools. And if you have two tiers of scholarships or whatever it may be, I think I worry about that. I understand your thought process, and we certainly want to incentivize students to go into certain career fields, but I think once and I have no problem incentivizing it in some sort of way, but I think it needs to be the student's decision and not government's decision to really do that. And I think we start doing that. I think these TEG grants or saves he said, I think it saves the state money. I think it's a great investment to do a private-public venture to get a certain percent of our students into these private colleges. They're doing a great job, and I think it really elevates the level of education in our state in rigor. I just like having that balance that I think Georgia has with our private universities and colleges here. And so I do agree with you on this eligibility of these schools, how you described separating those criteria and those type things. But end of the day, I think it's a good investment for taxpayers if we do increase these TEG grants going forward, would be my recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think it's important too, I have one of these private institutions in my district, which is traditional students, but a lot of these private colleges, the needs they fit are non-traditional students that a lot of schools, public and other private, don't fit. There's a need out there for how some of these programs are run, how the course offerings, how they offer them, just like we heard our last meeting from some of the schools. So I think that's very important to keep in mind. Representative Glaze?
You're absolutely right. I'm working in this field and having young people over many years. I had to always figure out what they needed based on who they were, what their skill sets were, what support systems they may need around them, and then what they're really gifted to do. Sometimes your gift and your training will open a door to entrepreneurship and innovation that we can't say if it came through one track, the USG, TCSG, versus private. If we start doing that, then we kind of lock down this whole other part of what we need in our society, and that's the entrepreneurs, that's the innovators, that's the creative people. As we know, we've looked at philosophy and understand for many years that we have to have a continuum and a pendulum of all kinds of creative and science-based minds to really have a full society where we have arts and we have theater. And now theater and music is part of therapy. And then so we just need to make sure that we understand every student in this state is a student that we want to help. Stay in state, have the opportunity to be trained in the area of their gift and what they want to bring to the state. I just think that I would never be able to tell one of my students who said, I need to go to Reinhardt versus University of West Georgia, and I want to be a teacher. If I looked at their records and I know that we supported them strongly in high school, I'm going to look at the college who's got the most support around that student. And usually, in that case, it's going to be that private Reinhardt, because I know, and that student might not be successful with 20, 30, 40,000 students at a Georgia State. So I just want to keep the idea of our students having this value and that we center around that, all of these great programs, so we move all of our kids. Their parents are taxpayers, so to say part of our taxpayers should go here and the other part shouldn't go, and that student and their parents don't get it, the TEG will be hard to do because they pay taxes into the system too, right? Mm-hmm. So I do understand efficiency and how we might need to put 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 requirements to come into the program, but gosh, we definitely need our private colleges, and we need those students in the workforce, and they are high demand. If you become a Chick-fil-A operator, you're high demand. So I just want us to stay really open in that space, because those students need our support. They need our voices with them.
Absolutely. Thank you, Representative. Yes, sir.
I like what the lady said. In fact, I want to, commend her on supporting school choice in higher education. I support it in all levels of education. And I didn't mean to say that the TEG shouldn't be available to some of the private colleges. I guess I got us more into the details than I meant to today, but I wanted to have this conversation because the TEG should be what the value is to the state in conjunction with that student. It's not the same for every school and every degree. Chairman Dickey brought up, as well as the lady did, she brought up a good thing, is there is a value of not the state not having to have a capital investment for that building that student's going in. And so my thought of that is on some of these degree programs, I don't see there's a lot of value, that extra value the state's getting for that TEG. On other programs, it's far more than $1,000 a year. And so that's I'd just like us to have that conversation over it, because I think nobody said anything wrong here today, and I appreciate Chairman Dickey. I was 50-50 with him. He agreed with me on one thing and didn't another. I'll take that all day. But yeah, to have that conversation, because it's maybe far more valuable for Mercer to be building, doctors and nurses than the $1,000 they're getting in it, that the student's getting. It's ultimately getting to the private college, right? It's not going to the student. And in some cases, not so much. So it kind of goes down to what we're talking about, funding formula, that if we're trying to get to actual cost, it's a conversation. So I appreciate everybody.
I think the money actually does go to the student, though. I don't think it goes to the college. The tuition equalization grant goes to the student.
Well,
as I
but I
understand.
mean, it's like businesses and taxes. I mean, ultimately, it goes to them because they're having to pay a tuition at some point. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to private colleges. Very few people are if they're going on full scholarship. So it's helping them pay.
Well, it would do the same thing at our university.
Absolutely.
Technical
No,
colleges, too.
absolutely, yeah.
So-
I didn't mean when it was going to the
So-
colleges
yeah.
as it was to the benefit of the college. I just meant it's ultimately going there because they're providing the property, plant, and equipment to educate the student. Yeah, it wasn't a
I
slack
think
at
we're
the-
all pulling in the same direction. We want to help students wherever they are. And it's like a lot of things. I think we have to meet those students where they are and what their unique needs are, whether it's technical, whether it's USG, whether it's a big college, a little college, a private independent college. And we are so fortunate in our state to have so many of all of those. So we're way ahead of the curve right now. I think our opportunity is huge, and we need to figure out how we can do that. And while there are some specific degrees, I think, like in the medical field, in the education field, the other thing to always remember is that your degree is not necessarily what you do, and I think that's what Representative Glaze was saying so well, so much better than I will actually. But if you think back on all the people that you know that have a degree in one thing, they may have gone on to do something much greater, much more profitable, much more beneficial to our state, but that's very hard to measure. So just because you're getting a degree in one thing, we've got to remember that doesn't mean that's what you're going to do. That may be a ceiling that you go way busting through. So just another thought for us to have. So I would love for the day to come where we really look at the 3 opportunities for education we have for post-secondary education in our state to be viewed with a more equal lens of how important they are to each and every student.
Any other questions or thoughts, suggestions? I think we've had a very productive committee meeting today and the past few committee meetings, and that's exactly what we wanted to do with this committee process, was spur dialogue, spur this conversation, because especially around TEG, we know last year we had several pieces of legislation, and years past we have, but to get all the members' thoughts and to kind of see what suggestions are out there. I think what we're going to do moving forward, Chairman Martin, is draft a recap of work that this committee has done. Also outline suggestions that everybody has made, whether it's today, past committee meetings, or have emailed in, and put in that draft what suggestions there are, what recommendations there are, and possibly look at that as we move in, going into session, if there's any legislation that will come from that. Obviously, if there is, we'll have to have a lot of conversations with Chairman Knight, because he'll be a key asset to this, from chairing of the appropriations of higher ed. So we'll get that out hopefully in the next few weeks to the members. And if there's any other thoughts after this meeting, please let us know, let Molly know, and we'll make sure to include that. So I'll ask one more time if there's any other final discussions or ideas before we close the meeting.
I've had the great pleasure of working with you guys first year in, first session, and it's been wonderful to hear your ideas and to get to know this space. And I just want to say thank you, and it's been my great pleasure and honor.
Thank you for your participation.
Just as part of that, I mean, one of the things I think we could do, and I've spoken a bit with President Riley about it, is to ask them to help us as we move forward of what a straw student would look like, if you will, that if you were this and you were going here, what's available to you. I mean, we often see that in terms of the award that can be there. And I think if we do that, we can sort of see the holes if we have one. Because sometimes there's, you get this, and this if you go here, but if you go over here, there's something else that stacks available on that. And I think that hasn't been done in a while. I will articulate that to you a bit more in writing for your thoughts on including that into the request or ask. But I don't believe that puts the president and the group over at Georgia Student Finance at any great disadvantage to help us with that information. Right. To give us that. And then just me in closing, I want to just say I appreciate you. Chairman Wiedauer got out without me saying that. He closed his meeting off very quickly, but I appreciate both of you for convening these meetings and listening to the input from our stakeholders. You just done a tremendous job of that, and I'll continue to say that I think our committee at higher ed, along with, of course, Chairman Knight's, all of the committees are very valuable in the House and the Senate, but because they affect people. The advantage we have in higher ed is we affect people that affect people. So we have a multiplying effect, and your recommendations will help us do a better job with that. I appreciate the job you've done.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. And before we close, I just have several people that we want to thank for helping us throughout this committee process and today. First of all, thank you, Chairman Martin, for convening this and allowing this discussion to happen. I know Chairman Wiedauer and I are thankful for this opportunity. Also want to give a big thank you today to Georgia Southern University. They have rolled out the red carpet. I see Brian Harris in the back. He's put a lot of hard work into this. President Marrero was with us earlier. It was great being down here today and then last night over at Ageechee Technical College and seeing all the great things they have going on. So thank you, Brian, and please pass on to President Marrero our thanks as well, and all y'all's team that's been working hard on this. Also want to thank all of our stakeholders in this process that have participated and have worked with us and got documents to us and supporting information that we needed. I want to thank President Riley again. She has been very helpful through this process, and anything we needed, her and her staff have been there, so thank you very much. Mr. Mark Peavy, who's Chief of Staff at TCSG, thank you for everything you've done and all your time commitment. I know there's a lot of things going on, and y'all are very busy, but we appreciate that. Also, want to thank Molly Aziz. We could not have done this without her. I know I couldn't have, so thank you very much. We really appreciate everything that you've done. So she's made it very easy for me on this role. So thank you very much, and to all your staff as well. I want to thank Christy from Ledge Council for being here for all our meetings and being here to support us. Also want to thank Justin with House Media for helping everything today with the media aspect. And this committee meeting will be posted on the House website, as all the past meetings have been as well. And that's it. Thank y'all so much. I hope to see some of y'all today, later this afternoon, hang around for the great football game that's going on tonight between Georgia Southern and Georgia State. It's going to be a nationally televised game, so that's really, really exciting, showcasing two of our great institutions from Georgia here tonight, so everybody across the country can see all the great things we have going in Georgia. But y'all, everybody have a great afternoon and safe travels back home. Thank y'all.